Hi, I'm Larry Brennan. I was asked to speak by Ursula. A bit of background as to where I'm coming from. I've worked for 8 years in the Guardian's Office of the organized Scientology. The last 5 years, from 76 to 81, I was in charge of all their legal matters outside of the court for the world, including Germany and Europe, out of St. Hill Manor in East Grinstead, Sussex, England. After that, for a few years, I went to Los Angeles. We did the corporate reorganization of Scientology, and I became posted as a member of what was called the special unit, and became the special unit in charge and a member of what they call in Scientology the Watchdog Committee. Allegedly in Scientology, the Watchdog Committee are the about 12 top people in Scientology, and we were, except for the fact that secretly we were really run by David Miscavige and L. Ron Hubbard. My last couple of years I was on the Watchdog Committee, and anyway, from that background, and I'm working on a lot of their legal stuff, that I wanted this information. First of all, there is no way in the talk of this duration that I can even approach detail, so I'm just going to give some summaries and a couple little examples on each point. I have, for people that might be interested later, I have a declaration that goes into a lot more detail as well. I know there'll be questions and answers, and there's some stuff tomorrow for questions and answers too, and I'll be glad to give more information. So this is just a general outline. First of all, I think a thing that's important to know is that we very intentionally developed religious cloaking for organized Scientology with the intention of getting it able to operate, because basically it was fear that the practice of psychology without a license. I mean, you're doing stress tests and Oxford capacity analysis tests and doing evaluations on them and telling them what's wrong with them and a whole bunch of money. Sounds a lot like psychology to me. So what we do is, I used to get every psychological practice act in every state and country of the world, cantons in Switzerland, provinces in Canada, and whenever we would get them, we would amend them to exempt religions or ministers of religion. And then we would work very heavily on cloaking Scientology in religious practices and look and feel, so that by that way it could be exempt from the laws of practicing psychology without a license. But the other, quote, benefits of religious cloaking, the reason why they did it, had to do with avoiding a whole lot of other laws besides that. I mean, they don't pay minimum wage, they have awful working hours, they heavily abuse their staff. There's lots of things that around the world where laws would be violated unless somehow they were exempted as ministers of religious orders. So in any event, I want to give you an idea, like, Scientology will say that they're religious and policies that go well before my time. Hubbard had said they're religion and all that. And that's all fine what's in the policies, but would you like to know what is really said behind the scenes? And I'm going to give an example of a confidential Hubbard order from 1979. And this was the order that started the entire missions, the missions of Scientology. In Hamburg, there's an organization, and just below the organization are missions, and they're usually smaller operations that deliver a lot of introductory Scientology services. Now, the missions of Scientology are, everything's run by David Miscavige, but they're run under an organization called SMI, Scientology Missions International. I needed to define that for you because he mentions SMI in this order. But so, before there was ever a Scientology Missions International, Hubbard was writing to a member of his Commodore's Messenger organization and the Guardian's office about how we could set up SMI. Now, I'll let you determine if the little bit I'm going to quote here, well, it'll take a couple of minutes, sounds very religious. But I want to tell you this is a typical example of hundreds of orders like this that the public never get to see. Okay, this is Hubbard talking in 1979. And it's about starting Scientology Missions International, SMI. Do you realize that when this organization is put together as a church from SMI, it will have all manner of tax benefits and everything else? It can trade, buy property, etc., etc. And all of these things are tax exempt. This is one hell of a sales pitch that can be launched back of this. In the last issue of of Spotlight newspaper, there was an ad from a Hensel or Bensel about the United Church League or some such thing. And he laid out the benefits of being a church under the heading of the fastest growing religion in the world. This guy sells ordinations and is getting away with it. What this guy said is true. It has terrific advantages from a tax point of view to run a church. One has to sort out the sales pitch, how one will get money from it, the advantages, and get this fully understood by anybody along the line, or nobody will be able to sell a damn thing. These new franchises, that's the new missions, will have to be marketed. It's a piece of cake. You can sell a dozen of them in every major city in the world. They gain in this enormous tax advantages, a good business that pays money, ways and means to invest money and hold money without tax rip-off, and it's actually like selling warm mittens to a frozen Eskimo. Now that is the type of communications that we and the head of the corporate department of Scientology got all the time. It was nothing about, we're going to save the world, we're a religion, and we're here for the good of mankind. It was, we have to cloak this in religion, and to do that are tremendous tax and other benefits. And I obviously can't quote a lot of these things. This is one, I didn't bring a lot with me, but two, this just makes the point. When I was on the Watchdog Committee, we got an order like this every single week for almost 2 years from Hubbard. And there were hundreds of these orders otherwise. So even behind other Scientology fronts, like the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises or Narconon or what have you, there are LRH orders that have to do with how to control people through this, how to make money, how to pretend we're a social betterment, but what we're really doing is funneling people into Scientology this way, and this way we can get on the side of governments and what have you. And the other thing to religious cloaking was to even make governments afraid to deal with Scientology, you know, that they were intruding onto religion. And organized Scientology would be quite willing to spend millions of dollars to fight anybody in that area. So in any event, that was what was behind why they were doing religious cloaking and why it was intentionally made to look like Scientology was a religion. And the other thing we did on it is we did two things. One was to make up things that were not anything to do with Scientology and put them in so we looked like a church. And it's silly, really, but I mean, it's like Sunday service. There wasn't a Scientology Sunday service. There's nothing to do with the auditing and training and so forth. It was created to make it look like, well, it's a Sunday service. The Roman minister collars from like the Catholic Church and other churches, there wasn't any reason that anybody in Scientology had to wear a Roman minister collar except to try to look like a church. So a lot of things were done intentionally to fraudulently represent Scientology as being a religion. And then other things were done with what it did. Like, for example, I have paid $400,000 for Scientology services and so forth. Shows you how smart I am. And in any event, they're termed, like we say, fixed donations. Well, I can guarantee you I could not have done clear, or I could not have done what they call their operating Thetan levels unless I gave an exact amount of money. This will be $50,000, this will be $60,000. But no, they try to make it look like a religion, so they call it a fixed donation. So there was a lot of words that were used to play around with that. And then the last thing that was done, which they still use today, is scholars. There are a number of religious and theological and even legal scholars that have come out, and Scientology has pushed out statements from them that Scientology is a religion. And the Church of Scientology is a religious organization. How did that come about? Well, it was my area that basically started the program back in '75. And well, the PR and the legal departments of the Guardian's office. And what we used to do is we'd make up things. There's a book from 1978 called What is Scientology? I know you can't see this, but I'll show it to people later. And it has my name